Hey guys, tonight we sink right into the warm desert night, the kind where the horizon blurs into velvet darkness and the dunes seem alive, breathing in the wind. Imagine you're standing there, your boots filling with fine grains of sand, your throat just a little too dry from the endless trek. A caravan has stopped ahead of you, lanterns swaying like trapped stars, and smoke from their fires drifts upward to kiss the Milky Way. The smell of cardamom tea and roasted lamb wafts toward you, mixing with the dust. And you realise this isn't just any pit stop, it's the beginning of a story wrapped in superstition, greed, and just a little bit of cosmic nonsense. You probably won't survive this one, but hey, that's what makes it fun. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And since I'm always curious where this is reaching, drop a comment below with your location and the local time. I love seeing the whole world connected by these midnight rambles. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The caravan is quiet except for the occasional bray of a camel and the clinking of metal pots. You trudge closer, and you notice the way the traders huddle, whispering not about spices or textiles, but about something older, stranger. One man gestures broadly with his hands, pointing toward the dunes as though the sands themselves hold the secret. You can't quite catch his words, but you feel the tension, the kind of hush that falls when someone mentions a curse and everyone half believes it. A boy approaches you, barefoot, with eyes too old for his face. He presses a date into your palm as if it were payment for silence and murmurs. Don't listen too closely. The story follows whoever hears it. Cheery, right? Nothing says sweet dreams like a preteen warning you about an eldritch artifact. Still, you're drawn in. You sit cross-legged on a woven rug near the fire, and the flames crackle like tiny bones. The storyteller begins, his voice low, weaving together strands of Arabic, Persian, and even Greek. You recognize some names: Babylon, Nineveh, cities swallowed by time and sand. He talks of a ring, a band of gold not forged by smiths but conjured in the desert storms by a woman who called herself no less than the sorceress of all horizons. According to him, the ring wasn't just jewellery. It was said to hold a command over shadows, over storms, and perhaps even over the jinn themselves. And because history is basically one giant cosmic joke, you realise people have always feared shiny objects. Remember how in ancient Egypt they used literal crocodile dung as sunscreen? Historians still argue whether it was effective or just another excuse to smell terrible in the midday heat. The ring, at least, had a slightly more dramatic reputation. Supposedly, entire caravans vanished because someone slipped it on and drew the desert's fury. As you sip the too-hot tea pressed into your hands, you hear a quirky tidbit. One merchant swears the ring was once buried with a Persian general who believed it would let him command lions in battle. Yes, lions. Which sounds ridiculous until you realise Romans actually staged full-on animal fights in their arenas. So at least he wasn't totally off the historical absurdity scale. The night deepens, and the stars above grow sharper, like pins in black silk. You find yourself scanning the horizon, half expecting some phantom army to rise from the dunes. The firelight flickers across the listeners' faces, each caught between skepticism and fascination. There's a gentle mocking tone in the trader's tale, but also that lingering unease. You can laugh at curses all you want, but out here, with sand in your boots and no city walls for miles, every superstition feels a little heavier. The storyteller pauses, letting silence stretch. A breeze sighs through the palms of the nearby oasis, rattling the fronds like dry bones. The ring, he whispers, always seeks a hand, and the desert never forgets its promises. You swallow hard. Suddenly, the date in your palm tastes a little bitter. Someone tosses another log on the fire, sparks shooting upward like fleeting spirits. The boy who warned you earlier leans in close. They say the sorceress still waits, not dead, not alive, just listening, under the dunes. His voice cracks slightly, the bravado slipping away, and you can't tell if he's trying to spook you or genuinely terrified. Either way, mission accomplished. Your skin prickles under your cloak. A camel bell rings in the distance, eerie in the stillness. The caravan master rises, announcing the journey must continue at dawn. But no one moves to sleep just yet. They sit entranced, the story looping in their heads like a half-forgotten dream. You feel it too, that tug of curiosity mixed with dread. Maybe it's just human nature. We always lean closer to the fire when someone swears the shadows hide monsters. And so you lie back on the rug, staring up at constellations that once guided sailors and kings, and you think of that cursed ring glimmering somewhere beneath the sands. You don't believe it, not really, but you can't quite dismiss it either. The night hums with possibility, and whether the story is truth, legend, or just a clever trader's scare tactic, you already know you're caught in its orbit. Sleep teases the edges of your vision, but the fire pops sharply, and the tale's weight presses on your chest. The desert feels alive, watching, waiting. The ring of the sorceress, whatever it is, has already found you in story, and stories, as you know, are the most dangerous spells of all. The desert morning always feels like betrayal. You've barely dozed, wrapped in scratchy wool under a sky that shifted from starlit wonder to pale, unrelenting dawn. The fire is little more than a smudge of ash, and the caravan stirs with sluggish movement, camels complaining, pots clanging, people muttering in half-woken curses. You drag yourself up, sand sticking in your clothes, and the boy from last night gives you that same too-old stare, as if he knows something you don't. Spoiler, he probably does. A figure approaches, moving with the exaggerated calm of someone who thrives on mystery. He's a merchant, but not like the others with their stacks of silks and baskets of saffron. His goods are fewer, stranger, small boxes lacquered in faded paint, bundles wrapped in goat hide, one chest bound with rope as though it might bite if loosened. His turban is dark blue, decorated with tiny silver discs that flash in the sunlight, and his beard has been combed to an unsettling perfection. He sits across from you, cross-legged, and begins to unpack. Out comes a necklace of bone beads, a scroll case that smells faintly of mildew, and finally, dramatic pause, because of course, an ornate ring. It isn't flashy. In fact, the gold looks dull, worn by centuries, but set in its centre is a stone that doesn't quite behave. It flickers between green and black depending on the angle, as though refusing to settle on a single truth. You, the merchant says, pointing directly at you, look like someone willing to gamble, which is rich, considering you're currently broke, parched, and reliant on borrowed blankets. You tell him so, but he only grins. This ring doesn't want gold. It wants a hand, a story, a promise. Mainstream history reminder: ancient bazaars were the original flea markets of human civilization. In Baghdad's legendary souks during the Abbasid era, merchants would sell everything from exotic spices to parrots that could recite Quranic verses. People loved spectacle. So, a weird little trinket with a cursed backstory, that was basically prime marketing. Historians still argue whether traders genuinely believed these legends, or if they simply knew a spooky tale could double the price of an otherwise unimpressive piece of jewellery. The merchant strokes his beard and launches into the sales pitch. He claims the ring belonged to a woman so powerful that even caliphs courted her counsel. She lived on the edge of empires, in a tent woven from black silk, guarded by lions that obeyed her like house cats. He insists her name has been erased from chronicles because no king could tolerate a sorceress with that much independence. Which, frankly, sounds exactly like something a jealous historian would do, erase you out of pure spite. Then comes the quirky tidbit. Apparently, Whoever wore the ring could walk barefoot across burning sand without blisters. Handy, sure, but not exactly the power you'd hope for if you're summoning djinn or commanding armies. Maybe it was just the medieval version of a life hack. Still, the merchant says it like it's proof of divine magic. You lean closer. The stone catches the sunlight, shifting again, and for a moment you see your own reflection, distorted, stretched, like a shadow on rippling water. Something in your chest tightens. You shake it off, reminding yourself it's just a sales trick. Rings don't shimmer with destiny. They shimmer because someone polished them with oil and theatrics. But the merchant isn't done. He lowers his voice, conspiratorial. It comes with a price. Every owner of the ring lost what they loved most. A daughter, a city, even their own name. He pauses, letting the silence sink like quicksand. The boy from last night hovers nearby, eavesdropping and mutters, "Told you not to listen," comforting. Historians still argue whether such desert legends were rooted in real objects, or whether they were just storytelling tools for explaining disasters. A drought wipes out a village, clearly. Someone angered the spirits. A caravan disappears. Must have been a cursed artifact. Personally, you suspect most of it came down to sandstorms and bad camel management. But try telling that to a merchant with a flair for the dramatic. You ask what he wants in return. He smiles slyly, not naming money, but instead saying, "A favour, someday. When the dunes call, you'll answer." Which is, let's be honest, the worst payment plan ever. At least a credit card bill gives you a date and amount. Still, you find your fingers twitching. The ring sits between you both, quiet, waiting. Part of you wants to laugh and walk away. Another part feels the pull of the story itself, like the desert has wrapped its invisible fingers around your shoulders. The merchant sees the hesitation, leans back smugly, and says, "It doesn't matter whether you believe me. The ring already knows you." That's unsettling enough to shut you up for a while. You sip what passes for water, warm, flat, tasting vaguely of camel, and glance at the horizon. The dunes seem taller today, almost leaning in, like they're listening. Maybe it's just the lack of sleep, or maybe the ring's presence has already seeped into your bones. Either way, you know this encounter isn't going to just vanish with the next sunrise. The caravan starts to move, bells clanging softly as camels are loaded. The merchant tucks the ring back into its goat-hide bundle, but not before you catch one more glimpse of its shifting stone. It feels like a wink, or a warning. Maybe both. You shoulder your pack, following the slow rhythm of hooves against sand. The sun is rising higher now, cruel and endless, and though the morning looks ordinary, you carry the knowledge that somewhere in those dunes, a sorceress's laughter still lingers, carried on the wind like a whisper. By the time the sun slides low, staining the dunes with copper light, you've convinced yourself the merchant's theatrics were just another hustle. After all, desert traders have been telling tall tales for millennia. Still, the story clings to you like sand between your teeth, impossible to shake. When the caravan stops at an oasis ringed by palm trees, you gratefully sink down beside a pool of still water. Its surface is so clear it reflects the stars before they've even arrived. The evening stretches lazily. A pot of lentil stew bubbles over the fire, and the air smells of cumin and wood smoke. You settle in among the group, feeling that mix of exhaustion and curiosity only travel can brew. Then, as if on cue, the stories begin again. Every caravan night is the same. Food, laughter. Then the old tales, except tonight. Every tale loops back to the same object. That cursed, shimmering ring. One woman, her hair streaked with grey but her eyes sharp as falcons, leans in and says, "She was no ordinary woman. She was the Desert Sorceress. Some call her Yasmina of the Burning Wind. Others say she had no name, only titles, like the Jinn Tamer or Keeper of Storms." The flames dance in her gaze as she speaks. Mainstream history steps in. It's true that powerful women often linger in half legend, half memory. Consider Cleopatra, described by Romans as both a goddess and a seductress, depending on who held the pen. Historians still argue whether she was more cunning politician or irresistible siren. And just like Cleopatra, this sorceress's story seems to shift depending on who tells it. The caravan men nod gravely, each chiming in with their own fragments. One insists she could command falcons with a whistle. Another swears she turned enemy soldiers into salt pillars. A boy laughs and says she brewed love potions so strong entire tribes lost their minds for her. Quirky detail of the night. Someone even claims she invented eyeliner because apparently nothing says fearsome desert queen like smudge-proof coal. Honestly, not a bad legacy. You listen, lulled by the rhythm of the voices. The oasis water ripples gently as a breeze skims its surface. Palm fronds shiver, their shadows slicing across the sand, and the stories weave together, threads of awe and fear, until it feels like she might step out from behind the trees at any moment, cloak of sand trailing behind her. Careful, the grey-haired woman warns, pointing a bony finger at you. The ring is not just gold, it is her hunger. To wear it is to invite her back. You shiver despite the warm night. Hunger is such a human word, and it makes her sound closer, less mythical. Someone produces a drum and taps a slow beat. The group sways, humming, their voices low as though summoning memory itself. The cadence of the tale thickens with each repetition. She ruled, she loved, she cursed, she vanished. The night feels alive with echoes, and you're caught in the rhythm, your heart sinking to the drum's hollow thump. You try to ground yourself in fact. Real oases like this one were lifelines for caravans across North Africa and Arabia. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient way stations, complete with stone cisterns and inscriptions marking safe water. These places weren't just rest stops, they were crossroads of culture, gossip, and yes, plenty of supernatural lore. If you wanted your legend to travel, telling it at an oasis fire was the medieval version of posting it online. The stars brighten overhead, an impossible sprawl of silver against black. You tilt your head back, half dizzy, and think of the sorceress. Was she real? Or just a collage of fears, storms, thirst, betrayal, stitched into one figure? Historians still argue whether characters like her in the Arabian Nights were based on actual historical figures, or whether they were pure storytelling invention. Truth usually falls somewhere in between. The boy from before sidles up again, clutching a reed flute. He plays a thin, wavering note, and for a moment, the sound bends strangely, as though echoing from beneath the water. He stops, frowning, then mutters, "She's listening." You laugh, but it comes out thin. The oasis is beautiful, but beauty in the desert is always edged with danger, like a smile hiding sharp teeth. The stories taper into silence, the fire collapsing into embers. You lie back, staring at the heavens. Somewhere far away, maybe, a real woman once held a ring, commanded power, terrified men who could not control her. Or maybe it's all smoke and shadow, meant to frighten children into obedience. Either way, you feel the weight of her name, or lack of it, pressing on you like the desert itself. The night deepens, the water glows faintly with starlight, and when your eyes finally close, you dream, not of peace, but of a hand, jewelled and delicate, reaching up from beneath the sand. The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily. By midday, the sun is an executioner overhead, and each step feels like a small betrayal from your own body. The caravan drifts onward, but you lag behind, following the faintest ripple of instinct, as if the stories have loosened something in the sand itself. Your boots crunch against a ridge of stone jutting from a dune, unnatural and jagged, like the tip of a tooth. You pause, the others move on, their silhouettes wavering in the distance, but you kneel to brush the sand away. More stone appears, flat, carved, marked with what might be old chisels or maybe just the claws of time. You scrape harder until your fingernails ache, and soon you uncover a slab of sandstone with faint etchings curling across its face. Symbols, letters. The lines twist into spirals that make your eyes swim if you stare too long. History fact break. The desert is littered with ruins older than most empires. Petra, that rosy city carved into cliffs, lay hidden for centuries until European explorers stumbled on it in the 19th century. And even now, historians still argue whether Petra was primarily a trading hub, a religious centre, or something stranger. Here in your little discovery, you feel that same uncertainty. Structure or tomb, sanctuary or snare. The wind whips suddenly, as if annoyed at your curiosity. Sand pours down, unveiling more stone, until you realise you're kneeling on the roof of a buried chamber. A faint crack runs through it, just wide enough for a reckless traveller to squeeze inside, which, of course, is exactly what you do. Because why not? You probably won't survive this. But adventure doesn't wait for hydration breaks. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly metallic, like coins or old blood. You lower yourself carefully, your hands sliding over walls slick with centuries of grit. The chamber is cramped at first, but it opens into a corridor lined with faded murals. They show women in flowing robes raising their arms against storms, men kneeling, camels bowing. In one panel, a central figure wears a ring that gleams brighter than the paint itself, untouched by decay. Quirky tidbit: medieval artists sometimes mix crushed gemstones into their paints, believing it would imbue the work with protective power. Lapis for heaven, malachite for life, even ground-up pearl for purity. Here, though, you wonder if someone actually embedded fragments of the ring's stone into the wall. It shimmers faintly, unnerving in the half-light. You shuffle deeper. The chamber narrows, the air thickens, and the silence grows so heavy you hear your own pulse drumming in your ears. Ahead, a doorway gapes, blocked partly by sand. You squeeze through, coughing, and find yourself in a wider room. Here, a stone sarcophagus rests at the centre, its lid carved with the likeness of a woman's face, sharp cheekbones, arched brows, lips curved in the faintest smirk. She looks smug, like she knows you've walked right into her trap. Historians still argue whether tombs in desert cultures were always burial sites or sometimes symbolic houses for spirits. Some claim false tombs were built to lure grave robbers, while the real resting place remained hidden. Staring at the smirking stone woman, you're not sure which one you found. The air grows colder. You step closer, your lantern casting thin shadows across the chamber. The sarcophagus lid bears inscriptions in looping script. Persian, Arabic, something older. The words shimmer strangely, as if the stone itself resists translation. One phrase you almost recognise, though: her hunger endures. Charming. You lean in, fingers brushing the groove of the carving, and feel a sudden vibration. The sarcophagus hums faintly under your touch, like a hive alive with bees. You snatch your hand back, heart racing. The sound fades. From somewhere behind you, sand trickles down, whispering like a voice just out of reach. The boy's warning echoes in your head. She's listening. You back away slowly, but your foot catches on something. Metal. You glance down. Half buried near the sarcophagus is a small circular object, not gold, not polished, just a crude ring of bronze, warped and cracked. You hesitate. Surely this can't be the ring. Too plain, too ordinary. But when you nudge it free, the bronze feels icy despite the desert heat. For a moment, the sarcophagus hums again, faint and hungry. The ring slips easily into your palm, and though your rational brain screams archaeological find, Your gut whispers curse. The lantern flickers, dimming as if the flame itself recoils. Shadows swell along the murals, making the painted sorceress figures shift, their arms raising higher, their eyes narrowing. You shake your head hard, telling yourself it's just fatigue, just shadows. But you can't shake the feeling that you've opened a door you won't be able to close. The corridor behind you looks narrower now, choking with sand. You clutch the bronze band, glance one last time at the smirking stone face, and back away. The wind outside howls louder, pressing grains of sand through cracks in the chamber walls. You climb, scrambling out into sunlight that suddenly feels far too bright, as though the desert itself is glaring at you. You stumble, panting, clutching the ring tight. The caravan is long gone, a smear of dust on the horizon. You're alone, standing above a tomb that shouldn't exist, with a relic you're not sure you wanted, and from beneath the dunes, you swear you hear it, that faint muffled laugh of a woman who hasn't drawn breath in 1,000 years. The desert doesn't give you time to debate bad decisions. By the time you catch up with the caravan, the sun has sunk into that bruised orange stage of evening, and you're clutching the bronze band so tightly your palm has grooves. You don't tell anyone what you found. Maybe you should. Hey, I just looted a sorceress's tomb. Anyone want to split the curse? But some part of you knows the moment you speak it aloud, it will become more real. At the next stop, the caravan huddles by firelight again, the familiar comfort of stew and spiced tea wrapping the night. You keep glancing at the ring hidden in your pouch, like it might burn through the fabric. Finally, when no one's looking, you pull it out. The bronze looks dull, almost disappointing after all that drama. But when you tilt it, the stone, if it even is a stone, flickers. Green, black, then something that looks like liquid fire, shifting too fast for your eyes to pin down. You slip it onto your finger, just for a second. You tell yourself. The cold hits instantly, not surface cold, like touching metal in winter, but bone deep, like someone poured glacier water through your veins. The fire in front of you seems to dim, and the voices of the caravan blur, distant, as though you've been dropped into water. Then the weight comes, a tug, not physical, but anchored somewhere inside your chest. You clutch your ribs, gasping, while the world tilts. Mainstream history moment. Humans have always believed objects could carry power. Medieval Europe was obsessed with relics, bones of saints, splinters of the true cross, even jars allegedly holding Mary's milk. Pilgrims would travel for months just to touch them, convinced a single relic could heal or condemn. Historians still argue whether it was genuine faith or just a convenient economy built on souvenirs. Here, in your case, faith doesn't matter. The ring delivers its own proof. Your vision sharpens unnaturally. The fire crackles louder, sparks rising like miniature comets. You see every detail of the night sky, stars you didn't know existed, glittering with icy clarity. And in that hyper-focus, you also see shadows. They move between the dunes, tall and thin, like figures walking just outside the reach of firelight. No one else reacts. Either they can't see, or they're pretending not to. You yank the ring off. The cold vanishes instantly. The shadows blur. The voices around you snap back into normal chatter. You're sweating, heart pounding, the band heavy in your palm. You shove it back into the pouch, hoping no one noticed. But someone did. The grey-haired woman from before stares at you over the fire. Her gaze is steady, knowing. She doesn't say a word, just raises one eyebrow as if to say, well, that didn't take long. You try to distract yourself with food, flatbread, lentils, dates, but every bite tastes like dust. The world feels thin, like paper about to tear, and you know the ring hasn't finished with you. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your rattled brain. In medieval Persia, some believed cursed objects could choose their owner, sticking like burrs no matter how many times they were discarded. Tales speak of swords that returned to their wielder after being thrown into rivers, or gems that reappeared in their owners' pockets. You laugh nervously to yourself, because you're starting to think this ring operates on the same refund policy. No returns, no exchanges. Later, when the caravan quiets into sleep, you lie awake, staring at the canopy of stars. The air is cool, almost kind, but your body hums with tension. You can't stop thinking about the moment the ring's stone flickered, and how it felt less like jewellery and more like an eye, watching you from the inside. You try to push the thought away, but then the dreams begin, not dreams, visions. Sandstorms swirling, towers of flame swallowing cities, rivers drying into cracked deserts. You see empires collapse, kings clutching crowns that melt in their hands, and always, in the centre, a woman in black, her face hidden, her hand raised. On her finger, the ring, glowing like a coal. You jerk awake, chest heaving, sand sticking to your sweat. The fire is just embers now, casting long skeletal shadows. For a heartbeat, you see the sorceress standing across the flames, watching, but when you blink, she's gone. Only the wind sighs through the palms, carrying the faintest laugh. The bronze band lies heavy against your chest where you've tucked it under your clothes. You don't dare touch it again, but you know the truth. You've already slipped too far into her story, and the desert, patient and endless, is only beginning to collect its price. Sleep doesn't mean rest anymore. When you close your eyes, the desert isn't silent, it's roaring. Tonight, the storm rises in your dreams, a wall of sand so tall it blots out the stars. You stumble through it, grit stinging your skin, and shapes flicker inside the storm. Faces, armies, entire cities being swallowed whole. Each time lightning cracks, you glimpse palaces burning, minarets collapsing, rivers boiling into steam. At the storm's centre stands a woman in a robe darker than the night sky. Arms outstretched, you can't see her face, but the silhouette of the ring glows on her finger, a shard of green fire. Her laughter is swallowed by the storm, but you feel it vibrating in your bones. Then she turns toward you, and you wake choking on sand that isn't really there. You sit up, coughing, only to find the world around you almost as strange as the dream. The campfire has gone out, but the dunes shimmer faintly as if lit from within. You blink, rub your eyes. No, not shimmer, shift. The sand moves like water, rolling in patterns too deliberate for wind. You hear whispers, not words but sibilant threads, pulling at your ears. History fact: dreams and visions have always been treated as gateways. In the Abbasid era, entire dream manuals existed to interpret symbols. Snakes meant treachery, rivers meant fortune, fire often meant divine punishment. Historians still argue whether these books were practical guides or simply reflections of an age obsessed with hidden meaning. Either way, if you flipped open one of those guides right now, your nightmare would probably get filed under "Congratulations, you're doomed." You stagger toward the pool at the oasis, desperate for grounding. The water's surface ripples without wind. You lean in, and instead of your reflection, you see entire scenes playing out. Troops marching under banners, caravans collapsing under storms, libraries burning in flames. For a surreal second, you swear you see modern things too. Highways cracking under sand, skyscrapers crumbling like toy blocks. The visions bleed together, centuries folding into each other, and you clutch your head, dizzy. The ring burns against your chest. You yank it out and hurl it into the sand. It lands with a dull thud, but then slowly sinks, pulled under as if the desert itself is swallowing it. Panic flares. You dive, clawing at the grains, hauling it back out. It's cold again, stone flickering, the faint laugh brushing your ears. You curse under your breath. Of course the cursed artifact won't just let itself be buried. Quirky tidbit. Did you know some medieval physicians believed sandstorms weren't natural but caused by angry spirits whipping the dunes? They even prescribed protective amulets made of silver crescents to ward them off. You think about that now, shoving the ring back into your pouch, wishing you had something as simple as an amulet instead of whatever this nightmare is. The night deepens, and eventually you collapse, half asleep, half alert. Dreams surge again. You're walking through a hall of mirrors, but every reflection is wrong. In one, you're crowned, ruling a golden city. In another, you're chained, dragged by faceless soldiers. In another, you're simply dust, scattered across the dunes. And always, in each reflection, the ring glows brighter, pulling you toward it like a compass. You wake again at dawn, exhausted. The caravan is already bustling, oblivious. People laugh, argue, haggle over dried figs like nothing has shifted. You try to join in, pretending, but your hands tremble when you lift your cup of tea. No one notices, except the grey-haired woman. She watches you quietly, her lips pressed in a thin line. Finally, she mutters, just loud enough, "You've seen her, haven't you?" You freeze. She doesn't wait for an answer. Don't think you're the first. She always comes in dreams. Some wake up mad, some don't wake at all. Her eyes soften, strangely kind. If you're lucky, she'll just take your sleep. That's comforting. You manage a shaky laugh, because what else do you do? The day stretches ahead, bright and merciless. But the memory of the storm clings, and deep down, you know the sorceress isn't done with you. She's barely begun. The dunes shimmer in the distance, and for a heartbeat, you swear you see her figure walking there, robes trailing across the sand. When you blink, she's gone. But the wind carries her laughter again, soft, cruel, endless. The caravan pushes onward, but the desert feels heavier now. It isn't just heat and sand. You sense something beneath it all, like a stage set built over a hidden trapdoor. Each footstep seems to echo against a hollow space below, and you can't shake the thought that at any moment, the ground might split open to swallow you. By midday, you've reached a ruined caravanserai, a square fortress of mud brick walls rising from the dunes like broken teeth. Travellers once slept here, watered their camels, traded news. Now, the arches gape empty, plaster crumbles, and swallows nest in cracks. The place has that faint smell of old smoke, though no one's lit a fire here in years. The guide insists on resting anyway. It's shade, and shade in the desert is worth ignoring a few bad vibes. You stretch out under a collapsed arch, but your rest is short-lived. A low humming drifts through the air. Not insects, not wind. It's rhythmic, pulsing, almost like chanting. You glance around. Others hear it too. The merchants mutter, the younger boys cover their ears, and the camels grow restless. Then you see them. Shapes at the edge of the dunes, half hidden in the glare. Cloaked figures, faceless in the light, standing perfectly still. You blink, and they're gone. The humming stops. But your skin crawls with the certainty that you've just glimpsed the army the desert woman warned you about. Historical fact. Armies did once march across these sands. The Mongols in the 13th century stormed through Persia and Iraq, their cavalry swallowing cities in days. Entire towns vanished, swallowed not by sand but by conquest. Historians still argue whether the desert itself aided or resisted them. Did storms scatter their enemies, or did shifting dunes bury their own supply lines? Either way, soldiers here have always felt at the mercy of something bigger. You climb a broken stair to scout the horizon. From the top, you can see further than you want, wave after wave of dunes, heat shimmer bending the air. But then a dust plume rises in the distance, too fast, too ordered to be natural. A line of riders moves across the horizon, their formation steady, their armour glinting like shards of glass. They're too far to reach you yet, but close enough to send your pulse racing. Quirky tidbit. Medieval chroniclers often blamed phantom armies for strange mirages in the desert. Some even swore they saw ghostly legions marching side by side with real troops, only to vanish when approached. Skeptics today call it Fata Morgana, a mirage effect bending light. But skeptics aren't the ones staring at an army riding straight out of the heat haze. You descend, almost tripping over rubble. The others look to you for answers, but what do you say? Relax, it's probably just physics. That won't sell. So you shrug, muttering, "We should probably leave sooner." The guide's jaw tightens, but he nods. The camels are repacked with frantic hands, and soon you're trudging onward again, everyone pretending not to look back. The sun bleeds low, painting the dunes with copper and blood. You glance over your shoulder one last time. The riders are gone, but in their place, scrawled in the sand where the ruined caravanserai stood, is a single massive ring shape. Drawn like by a giant's hand, it spans the entire ruin, a circle too perfect to be accident. Your stomach lurches. You don't remember hearing thunder, but you swear the dunes rumble, like a drumbeat under your feet. The grey-haired woman walks beside you, calm as ever. "It's beginning," she says simply. You want to shake her, demand what she knows, but something in her eyes warns you not to. That night, you can't sleep. Not after the storm dream, not after the riders. Instead, you lie awake listening to the sand. The desert hums again, low, steady, a lullaby that isn't for you. You grip the ring in your fist, half expecting it to flare. Instead, it lies cold, like it's waiting, patient. You whisper into the night, not sure if you're speaking to yourself, the sorceress, or the dunes. "What do you want from me?" No answer, just the slow hiss of sand slipping over sand, like 1,000 whispered secrets no one will share. By dawn, the world has shifted again. You wake to the smell of smoke, real this time, not memory. At first you think someone's cooking breakfast, but no, it's heavier, acrid, like oil fire. You crawl from your blanket and see it, a column of smoke rising miles away, curling into the pale sky. The guide squints, mutters something about a village ahead. Merchants exchange glances, mutter prayers. You already know what you'll find. The caravan trudges toward it anyway. Curiosity is stronger than fear, at least until fear has proof. The dunes fall away into a shallow basin, where mud brick houses once clustered around a palm grove. Now the grove is charred stumps, the houses roofless, doors hanging off hinges. Everything smells like burnt sugar mixed with rot. Ash drifts under your sandals. And silence. Absolute silence. No goats, no children, no barking dogs. Just the whisper of wind stirring blackened debris. You step carefully, scanning for survivors, but the place feels abandoned for years, except the smoke still rises from some invisible source, a thin black ribbon defying time. Mainstream fact, whole towns in medieval Arabia did vanish under sandstorms and raids. Chroniclers describe them as swallowed by the desert, which wasn't entirely poetic. A fierce storm could bury homes within hours. Historians still argue whether one famous site, Ubar, the so-called Atlantis of the Sands, was a real city lost to nature or just myth amplified by later writers. Standing here, you think, maybe both are true. Then you hear it. Footsteps. You freeze, hand tightening around the pouch with the ring. From between the ruins, figures emerge, but not children, not elders, soldiers. Their armour looks scorched, dented, blackened as if dragged from a fire. They carry spears and shields, though no banner flies above them. Their faces are obscured by soot, and when they move closer, you realise there are no eyes, just sockets glowing faintly green. The caravan erupts into panic. Merchants scatter, camels bawl, men shout prayers. You barely manage to draw back into the shade of a broken wall as the eyeless soldiers march stiffly past. Their movements are jerky, like puppets yanked by invisible strings. They don't look left or right. They simply march toward the horizon where the ring-shaped ruin burned into the dunes last night. Quirky tidbit. Medieval texts sometimes described sleeping armies. Entire battalions buried alive in sand or sealed in caves, doomed to wake at the end of days. Some believed these were God's punishment. Others thought they were treasures waiting to be looted. Neither theory, of course, accounted for eyeless zombie knights parading past your hiding spot. The grey-haired woman crouches beside you, whispering, "You see, her army isn't gathering, it's awakening. She doesn't need to recruit, she digs." You want to argue, but the words shrivel in your throat. Instead, you press yourself smaller against the wall as the last soldier passes. When they're gone, the silence snaps back. The smoke column fades as though inhaled by the sky. The caravan regroups shakily. Some want to flee back the way you came. The guide insists forward is safer than retreat. The grey-haired woman watches you, not him. She doesn't say it aloud, but her stare makes it clear. The choice is yours. You swallow, look to the horizon where the soldiers vanished, then to the track ahead. Whichever way you go, the ring hums faintly in your pouch, like it's pleased. That night, camp is restless. No one jokes, no one bargains. Even the camels seem subdued, chewing slowly, tails twitching like they know more than they should. You roll into your blanket, too tense to close your eyes, but exhaustion wins. Your dream isn't storm this time, it's a battlefield. You stand ankle-deep in sand-stained dark, banners torn, shields split. The air reeks of copper and dust. Corpses lie scattered, but none decay. They twitch faintly, waiting for some signal. And at the field's centre, her, the sorceress. She doesn't walk, she glides, her robe brushing corpses like a breeze. When she raises her hand, they all stir at once, turning their blank faces toward you. You jolt awake with a cry, and for once, you're not the only one. Half the camp shouts in their sleep, tossing, groaning. Some wake with screams. The air feels heavy, charged, as though the dream wasn't yours alone. The grey-haired woman sits upright by the fire, calm, eyes gleaming. She's sharing herself now, she says softly. You'll all see what you've brought into our midst. The fire pops. The stars glare down, bright and merciless. You grip the ring tighter, its weight pressing into your palm like shackles. Somewhere in the dunes, a drumbeat thuds faintly, too steady to be wind. The next morning, the caravan feels hollow. People pack in silence, glancing at each other with eyes rimmed red from bad dreams. A few are gone, simply slipped away in the night, their footprints already erased by shifting sand. No one speaks their names. No one asks where they went. Maybe they followed the drum beats. Maybe the desert claimed them. Either way, the silence lingers like ash on the tongue. You try to shake it off, trudging forward under the pale sun. But every dune you crest feels wrong. The sand seems patterned, sculpted, spiraling like a giant fingerprint pressed into the earth. And in the wind, you swear you hear chanting, not close, not far, just everywhere, blending with the hiss of sand. By midday, you see movement ahead. At first, relief, maybe another caravan. But as you draw near, you realize it's not travelers, it's an army. A vast line of soldiers stretches across the desert, formation impossibly neat, helmets flashing like mirrors in the sun. The guide halts, curses under his breath. The merchants pale, muttering prayers, fumbling with charms. The camels snort and kneel as if refusing to move closer. You can't blame them. Even from a distance, you can see these soldiers aren't alive. Their skin is waxy, their movements unnaturally synchronized. Spears rise and fall in perfect rhythm, no hesitation, no clumsiness. It's the kind of precision real humans never manage. Mainstream fact: armies throughout history always dreamed of that kind of precision. The Roman legions, for instance, drilled relentlessly until they could march 20 miles in 5 hours and still build a fortified camp by nightfall. Historians still argue whether their discipline or their tactics mattered more, but either way, even Rome never achieved this clockwork perfection. The army doesn't charge, they simply march past, endless ranks moving like a river of iron. You and the others crouch low, hoping not to be seen. But the soldiers don't look. Their eyeless sockets stare straight ahead, fixed on some invisible horizon. Quirky tidbit. Medieval travellers often described djinn armies moving unseen through the desert. Supposedly, they were invisible unless the wind carried their dust, revealing their passage. Some insisted these ghost legions were omens of empire, either yours rising or yours falling. Looking at this unnatural parade, you can't help but think the omens leaning toward the latter. Hours pass before the last rank vanishes into the dunes. Only then does the caravan stir. Some weep openly, some laugh too loudly, brittle and broken. The guide forces everyone onward, muttering about water running low, but the grey-haired woman just walks beside you, serene as ever. They aren't her whole strength, she says softly. They're just the ones who answered first. You almost choke. First. She shrugs. The desert has centuries of bones. The words follow you all day. Centuries of bones. And each bone might be a soldier waiting for her call. That night, you're too afraid to sleep. Instead, you sit by the embers, staring into the dark. The stars are sharp, cold, endless. For a moment, you feel almost comforted. At least the sky hasn't changed. But then one star winks out, then another. You blink, heart pounding. The sky isn't losing stars. Something is blotting them. A shape, vast and indistinct, moving silently across the heavens. You rub your eyes, but it doesn't vanish. It lingers, blocking constellations you knew by heart. You whisper to the grey-haired woman, pointing. She nods calmly. Her shadow grows long. The shape slides away, stars blinking back alive. The silence after feels worse than thunder. When you finally drift into sleep, the dream comes quickly. You're on a battlefield again, but this time, you're not just watching, you're standing among the ranks. Armour clings to your shoulders, a spear in your hand. You march, perfectly synchronized with the others. You don't want to, but your body obeys. Ahead, the sorceress raises her hand, the ring on her finger blazing like a second moon. You try to fight it, to stop, but your feet keep moving. You jolt awake, gasping. Sand sticks to your face, your fists clenched tight around nothing. Across the fire, the grey-haired woman stares at you, as if she's been waiting for you to wake. She leans closer and whispers. She's already teaching you how to march. The morning feels cursed before it even begins. The air is too still, the horizon too sharp, and everyone in the caravan avoids each other's eyes. You notice people shuffling in rhythm, footsteps unconsciously falling into patterns as if the dream still guides them. Even the camels sway in time, necks dipping like they've been drafted into some invisible drill. You try to shake it off, dragging your sandals deliberately out of step, but every few minutes your feet betray you, sinking back to that steady, inhuman beat. You mutter a curse under your breath and stomp deliberately off tempo, earning a puzzled look from a nearby merchant. He shrugs as if to say, "Why fight it?" By noon, you crest another ridge and freeze. Before you lies a valley of banners, rows of spears planted upright in the sand, each topped with a fluttering scrap of cloth. Some are bright silk, some rotten burlap, some nothing but tatters. They sway though there's no wind. The sight makes your throat go dry. It's not a battlefield, it's a graveyard. Mainstream fact. Armies across history loved leaving markers of victory, spears, shields, even skulls arranged on stakes. The Mongols, again, were notorious for piling enemy bones into pyramids. Historians still argue whether these displays were practical intimidation or just theatrical cruelty. Either way, the valley you stand in feels like a museum curated by the dead. The guide insists you keep moving, but as you weave through the rows, you realise something worse. Each banner bears a symbol of a different age. One looks like a crusader's cross, another like a Persian lion, another like a Mongol falcon. These are not one army's trophies, they're every army's, and the valley stretches for miles. Quirky tidbit. In the 10th century, one Arab geographer claimed he found a plain of standards where lost banners fluttered forever in honour of forgotten wars. Most scholars dismiss it as allegory, but standing here, you can't help thinking he undersold the nightmare. The caravan grows frantic. Merchants start running, tripping over spears, cursing. The camels refuse to move, bawling and frothing. You force your way forward until the rows thin, but the dread doesn't lift. It deepens. Because at the far end of the valley, standing atop a dune, is the sorceress. Her robe whips through there's no wind, her hair dark as oil, and on her hand the ring glows green fire. She raises her arms slowly and every banner goes still. Silence slams down, even the camels freeze. You can hear your own pulse, fast and frantic. Then, with a flick of her fingers, the banners snap into alignment, straightening into perfect rows like soldiers at attention. And then they march. Not the banners themselves, what they mark. The sand splits open, and soldiers claw their way out. Crusaders with rusted mail, Persians with bent lances, Mongols with cracked bows, all collapsing flesh and bone, all moving as one. An army stitched from centuries of death. The merchants scream. The guide shouts for everyone to run. You're dragged along in the chaos, sand flying, camels kicking. You don't dare look back, but you hear it, the rhythmic thunder of thousands of feet, not running, marching, always marching. You stumble into a ravine, gasping. The sound fades, swallowed by dunes, but the memory stays lodged in your bones. The caravan collapses around you, half its number missing, some lost in the stampede, some perhaps swallowed back into that army. No one counts aloud. No one wants to. The grey-haired woman appears at your side, calm as ever. She studies your shaking hands, then murmurs, "Now you understand." She doesn't conquer. She collects. You swallow hard. How do you stop her? She gives a dry chuckle. Who said you can? That night, no one lights a fire. The cold cuts deep. The stars burn overhead, and the silence is so sharp you're afraid even breathing will attract her army back. You clutch the ring, its glow faint but steady, and wonder if throwing it into the dunes again would matter. But deep down, you know the truth. The ring isn't just part of her, it's part of you now. And if her army is growing, it's not only because she calls, it's because you carry her voice. The desert is quieter the next morning, but not in a way that comforts. It's the silence of something holding its breath, waiting. The caravan moves like ghosts. No chatter, no arguments, not even the usual curses at stubborn camels. Everyone keeps glancing sideways at the dunes, afraid to see banners or eyeless soldiers rising again. You feel the ring heavier than before, dragging at your pouch. Each step makes it thump like a heartbeat against your hip. Sometimes you imagine it syncing with your own pulse, as if the two rhythms are merging. By midday, the sand changes colour. Darker, reddish, streaked with black. You kneel, run it through your fingers. It stains like ash. The guide mutters that the soil here is cursed, burnt in ancient fire. The grey-haired woman only says, "We're near." Near what? She doesn't explain. The caravan crests a ridge, And there it is, a city, or what remains of one. Crumbling walls stretch across the valley floor, towers leaning like drunks, gates half buried in dunes. From a distance, it looks abandoned. But as you stare, you notice movement in the streets, figures drifting, too smooth, too steady to be alive. Mainstream fact, deserts all over the world cradle ghost cities. Petra in Jordan, carved into rock, Palmyra in Syria, once a thriving trade hub, left to ruins. Historians still argue why many of these cities collapsed. Climate change, war, or trade routes shifting. But none of them explain figures still walking the streets centuries later. The caravan debates at the ridge. Some demand turning back. Others argue there's no choice. Water must be there. The guide insists you move quickly. Stick together. No one mentions the obvious. This is likely one of her places. One of the rings etched into the land. Quirky tidbit. Medieval lore often described sleeping cities in the desert, places where inhabitants vanished overnight, leaving food still on plates, fires still smouldering. Travellers claimed you could hear voices at night, bargaining in empty marketplaces. Skeptics blamed mirages or echoes. Standing here, watching shadowy forms drift through collapsed arches, you think skeptics should try visiting. The caravan descends. You walk through streets lined with broken columns and shattered mosaics. The designs underfoot are still visible. Spirals, stars, circles, always circles. The figures drifting between buildings ignore you, gliding silently. They wear robes of many ages, some silk, some wool, some chainmail. They are not ghosts, not quite. Too solid, but not human either. You duck under a half-fallen arch, and your breath catches. On the plaza ahead, at the city centre, stands a massive stone ring, twice your height, etched with glyphs glowing faint green. Sand spills through it like water, cascading endlessly though no wind blows. At its base lies a pool of glassy black stone, cracked and glimmering. The grey-haired woman kneels, bowing her head. Her circle, she whispers, one of many. The merchants whisper about leaving, about running, about anything but staying here. But the ring in your pouch pulses like a second heart, dragging you forward. You can't stop yourself. You step into the plaza, hand trembling as you touch the stone. It hums, low, deep, vibrating your bones. For a second, the world flickers. You see not ruins, but a living city. Stalls bustling, fountains running, banners bright. Then it snaps back, broken and dead. You stagger away, clutching your skull. The grey-haired woman steadies you, her eyes sharp. You see now, she doesn't destroy, she preserves. Every army, every city, locked inside her circles. Your stomach turns. Why me? Her lips curve, not quite a smile. Maybe because you asked. That night, no one sleeps inside the ruins. The caravan camps beyond the walls, too afraid. You lie awake, staring at the sky, listening to the faint hum of the stone ring echo across the dunes. Every time you close your eyes, you see the city alive again. People walking, laughing, selling dates, yet their eyes are always blank, glowing green. You clutch the ring tighter, desperate to believe you still have a choice, but the more it beats in time with your heart, the less certain you are. By dawn, the ruins feel like they've been watching you all night. The plaza hum still rattles your teeth, and when you turn toward the city gates, you swear the shadows bend slightly, as though the figures drifting in the streets lean to follow your steps. The caravan packs quickly, desperate to move, though away is a relative term when the desert seems to fold endlessly in on itself. The path leads along a dried riverbed, cracked and pale. The guide mutters that this channel once carried lifeblood across the dunes, but the waters fled centuries ago. You imagine whole villages vanishing when the river died. families scattering like ants, their footprints erased, and now here you are, stumbling over the ghost of thirst. Mainstream fact, desert rivers are real tricksters. The Saraswati in India, once mighty, dwindled to nothing centuries ago, and the Colorado's ancient flow carved entire canyons before shrinking. Historians still argue whether some lost civilizations were simply victims of climate-shifting water away. Standing here, though, with whispers chasing you down a dry channel, you doubt the explanation is that simple. By midday, the heat crushes down. The caravan halts under a cliff for shade. You crouch in the dust, head spinning, until you hear a faint metallic rattle. Not wind, not animal, a sound like weapons striking shields in rhythm. You crawl up the cliff and peer over, and your stomach drops. Below, another army is gathering, not marching this time, training. Hundreds of soldiers move in perfect unison, drilling maneuvers with uncanny precision. Shields raise, spears thrust, ranks pivot. No commander barks orders, yet every move syncs flawlessly, like puppets dancing to an invisible song. Their armour is patchwork, Persian, Byzantine, Bedouin, Crusader, all blended into a grotesque collage of centuries. Quirky tidbit. In medieval Baghdad, automata, mechanical soldiers, lions, even entire orchestras, were built with gears and water pressure. They amazed visitors, moving as if alive. Historians still argue whether such inventions were mere entertainment or symbolic power flexes, but watching this silent army drill in the desert, you think, maybe someone skipped the gears and went straight to corpses. Your pulse races. If they finish training, what then? Will they march, conquer, gather more? You climb down, breath ragged, and whisper to the grey-haired woman what you've seen. She only nods. She sharpens her blade before striking. Even death must rehearse. That night, the caravan barely moves before collapsing in exhaustion. You lie awake, staring at the stars again, terrified to sleep. But the dream comes anyway. This time, you're not a bystander. You're in the drill, a spear in your hands. Your body moves in perfect rhythm. Left, thrust, shield, step. You want to scream, to throw the weapon down, but your muscles obey commands you never gave. You glance sideways, and the soldier beside you is yourself, and the one beside that, dozens, hundreds of you, marching, drilling, blank-eyed. You jolt awake with a shout, chest heaving. Around the camp, others stir, groaning. A merchant moans about marching in his sleep, kicking at invisible spears. The guide wakes with a cry, gripping his arms as though he held a shield. The sorceress isn't just haunting your dreams anymore, she's conscripting everyone's. The grey-haired woman sits calmly, as if expecting this. She grows impatient, she murmurs. She's calling faster now. You clutch the ring, trembling. Its glow is faint, but steady, as if satisfied. And for the first time, you feel something worse than fear. Temptation. The drills felt right. Your body fit the rhythm too easily, as if it had been waiting. You shake the thought away, but it lingers, sour and seductive. You curl into your blanket, whispering to yourself, not me, never me. But the ring is warm now, pulsing softly in your palm like it knows you're lying. The morning sun is brutal, hammering down on the caravan like a blacksmith's mallet. Every step forward feels like dragging a stone tether, yet somehow you keep moving. The desert stretches ahead, flat and merciless, the horizon wobbling like liquid heat. You wonder if you've entered a painting where the artist forgot to add an exit. By midday, a new sound cuts through the silence. Bells. Not the tinkling of camel harnesses, but huge, echoing chimes, rolling across the sand as if carried on invisible waves. You shade your eyes, scanning the distance. On a jagged plateau ahead, a set of towers rises, crumbling, crooked, their stone so sun-bleached it glows white. At the top of one, a bronze bell sways without wind, clanging with eerie precision. The guide stiffens. "The Keep of Chains," he mutters. "No map marks it, no map dares." You feel your stomach twist because, of course, your journey heads exactly there. Inside the crumbling gates, you find hallways lined with iron hooks and empty shackles, swinging gently as though invisible prisoners are tugging them. The air tastes like rust, dry and metallic. You trail a hand along the wall, then jerk back. It's warm, pulsing faintly, as though the stones themselves breathe. Mainstream fact: in real medieval castles, dungeons weren't always dark torture chambers. Many were simple storage cellars or makeshift holding areas, but legends exaggerated them into nightmares of iron maidens and racks. Historians still argue whether devices like the Pair of Anguish ever truly existed or were inventions of later centuries. Yet as you stare at these shackles, rattling softly though no one touches them, you think sometimes legend takes root because it feels too real. The caravan spreads nervously, searching for water or shade, but finds only chains. You climb a spiral stair to the top of a tower, and there it is, the bronze bell, swinging on its own. Each clang vibrates the ring on your finger, tugging faintly toward your chest, as though it wants to merge deeper into you. Suddenly you hear voices, not just one, but dozens, layered and overlapping, whispers leaking from the metal. They chant in forgotten tongues, rising and falling like waves. For a split second, you recognize one. It's your own voice, buried in the chorus. Quirky tidbit. In parts of North Africa, desert tribes once believed bells carried protective magic, their ringing able to ward off evil spirits. The opposite belief also flourished, that bells lured spirits closer. Historians still argue whether ritual bells were guardians or invitations. Standing here, throat tight, you suspect both might be true. You stagger back, nearly toppling down the stair, but catch yourself on the railing. The bell booms again, and in that vibration, you glimpse a figure, flickering inside the bronze. A woman with wild hair, her eyes like burning coals. The sorceress. She doesn't step out. She doesn't need to. Her laughter vibrates in your chest like it's your own. When you return to the caravan, everyone looks shaken. One man's wrists are bruised, though no chains touched him. A child sobs quietly, swearing she dreamed of being locked inside the bell. The grey-haired woman only gazes at you, her expression unreadable. That night, you lie under the ruined arches of the keep. Sleep claws at your eyelids, but you resist, terrified of being shackled in another dream. Eventually, exhaustion wins. And of course, you're back inside. The tower is whole this time, glowing with firelight. The sorceress stands before you, draped in shimmering black robes. She raises her hands, and chains snake across the floor, wrapping around your ankles and wrists. You want to fight, but the iron feels almost comforting, like being tucked into bed. She leans close, her breath hot against your ear. "Every chain is a promise," she whispers, "and you've promised more than you know." You jolt awake, heart pounding, wrists burning with phantom bruises. The ring pulses once, then goes still, and you realize with horror you can't remember whether you spoke back to her in the dream or agreed. The desert beyond the Keep of Chains feels heavier, as if the sand itself has learned the weight of shackles. The caravan trudges forward in silence, each traveller lost in their own private unease. You keep flexing your wrists, half expecting cold iron to reappear out of nowhere. The grey-haired woman notices but says nothing, her silence louder than any warning. By late afternoon, the dunes give way to a valley carved by wind and time. Jagged rocks rise on either side, shaped like crude statues, frozen in eternal mid-gesture. As the shadows lengthen, you swear they shift when you're not looking, arms reaching, heads tilting, fingers curling toward you. It's the kind of optical trick that makes you want to blink as little as possible, just in case. And then you hear it, chanting, low, guttural, coming from deeper in the valley. The caravan edges forward, drawn despite itself. You emerge into a natural amphitheatre, where a circle of figures kneels in the sand. They are robed, faceless, each holding a torch that burns without smoke. In the centre of the ring sits a massive stone, cracked and veined with glowing red. On it rests something unmistakable. Another ring. This one is larger, carved from obsidian, gleaming like frozen night. Mainstream fact: obsidian rings were real artifacts in Mesoamerica. The Aztecs prized them not just for jewellery but for ritual use, believing volcanic glass could channel divine energy. Historians still argue whether such rings were tools, talismans, or simply symbolic wealth. Here, though, you feel the energy bleeding off it, and it doesn't seem symbolic at all. As you stare, your own ring begins to throb. A rhythm sync to your heartbeat. The figures chant louder. You realise they're not worshipping the stone, they're summoning through it. The obsidian ring is a portal, or a battery, or maybe both. You step closer without meaning to. The torches flare, and suddenly every robed figure turns its hood toward you. No faces, just black voids. Yet somehow, you feel recognised. Quirky tidbit: there are medieval records of angel summoners who used mirrors, rings, and crystals to call spirits. Some accounts describe the tools cracking or melting under strain, as if overloaded. Historians still argue whether these were allegories or literal attempts at techno-magic. Watching the obsidian ring vibrate on its stone pedestal, you think, overload seems very much on the table. One of the figures rises and gestures for you to approach. Against every sane instinct, you do. The closer you get, the louder the chant rattles in your bones. Your ring grows searing hot. The obsidian one glows brighter, its crack widening, showing hints of fire beneath. The figure raises its hand, and for a blink, you see her. The Desert Sorceress, not in flesh, but in projection, hovering just above the ring. Her eyes blaze. Her voice is everywhere at once. You've carried my key long enough. Return it. Complete the circle. Your knees buckle. The caravan cries out behind you, but the valley swallows their voices. You lift your hand, the gold ring blazing, and feel it straining toward its twin, eager to leap off your finger. The grey-haired woman's shout cuts through the air. If you give it, you're not just a carrier, you're a vessel. Historians still argue whether possession tales from the Middle Ages, demons entering through rings, amulets, or cursed relics, were metaphors for illness or taken literally. Here, you don't care about scholarly debates. You care about the fact that your body is leaning forward, your arm extended, and the sorceress's laughter is already inside your skull. You wrench yourself back with a desperate scream, clutching the ring to your chest. The obsidian cracks wider, flaring blinding light, and the vision collapses. The robed figures scatter like smoke, torches extinguishing all at once. When your eyes clear, only the stone remains, silent, empty. The second ring is gone. You stagger, gasping, sweat freezing against your skin in the desert night. The caravan gathers around you, faces pale. Nobody says it aloud, but you all feel it. The sorceress is closer than ever, and she's no longer satisfied with dreams. The valley spits you back into the dunes like a swallowed bone. The caravan staggers onward beneath a sky smeared with clouds, the first you've seen in weeks. They roll black and low, promising rain but never delivering, like a cruel joke dangled just out of reach. The air crackles with static, and every grain of sand under your boots feels alive, itching with anticipation. By nightfall you crest a ridge and freeze. Ahead, stretching across the horizon, is a fortress of glass. Not crystal clear, but smoky, fractured, rising from the sand like frozen waves mid-crash. The walls shimmer faintly with moonlight, bending the stars into distorted halos. Even at a distance, the place hums with power. The grey-haired woman whispers, "Her final seat, the ring's forge." The caravan hesitates. Some mutter about turning back. But the pull is too strong. The gold ring on your finger burns like fire, dragging you forward. You know you've reached the endgame, whether you want to or not. Inside, the fortress is hollow and echoing. Pillars of glass stretch upward, warped with trapped bubbles and shadows that move when you're not watching. The floor crunches underfoot like broken mirrors. Every step echoes twice, as though another set of feet walks just behind you. Mainstream fact. Medieval Islamic glasswork was famed for its clarity and artistry. From Cairo to Damascus, workshops produced lamps, goblets, and mosaics that travelled across Europe. Historians still argue how artisans achieved some effects, metallic sheens, rainbow tints, that modern glassmakers struggle to replicate. Looking around this fortress, you wonder if someone took that lost knowledge and built it into a weapon. At the heart of the hall waits a throne of black sand fused into obsidian, and on it, her, the Desert Sorceress, at last in full flesh. Her hair whips like smoke, her eyes burn like twin suns, and her grin splits too wide. The ring on your finger pulses violently, and you can feel it trying to answer hers. "You've carried my echo far," she says, voice low and velvet. "Now let it return, give it freely, and you will sit beside me, eternal." The grey-haired woman steps forward, shouting, "Don't listen, she's chained herself to her own power. Without you, she's nothing but ash." Quirky tidbit. In medieval tales of jinn, sorcerers often trapped spirits inside rings or bottles, binding them to service. Yet other legends reverse it. The sorcerers themselves became bound, unable to die without passing their power into another. Historians still argue which version came first, and whether both are metaphors for power's corruption. Here, you realise it doesn't matter. The sorceress is both jailer and prisoner, and she wants you to unlock the door. The air thickens, heavy as molten glass. You feel the ring throbbing. Desperate to leap from your hand, you fight to hold it, sweat pouring down your face. Every fibre of your body screams to give in, to surrender, to rest. But you remember the drills, the chains, the bell, the countless ways she tried to twist you into her reflection, and with a ragged breath, you decide no. You rip the ring from your finger, it sears your skin, leaving a smoking welt. Instead of tossing it to her, you hurl it against the glass floor. The impact shatters both. The fortress screams, a sound like breaking stars. Light floods the hall, shards of memory and dream exploding outward. The sorceress shrieks, her body unravelling into smoke. For a moment, you see her not as queen but as prisoner, gaunt, hollow-eyed, chained by her own hunger. Then she collapses, scattering into nothing, swallowed by the ruins of her glass throne. The fortress cracks, walls crumble, pillars collapse, shards raining like jagged rain. The caravan drags you outside just as the whole structure implodes in silence, sucked back into the desert. When the dust settles, only smooth dunes remain. No fortress, no sorceress, just stars and sand. You collapse, trembling, staring at your bare finger. The ring is gone, but its warmth lingers like a phantom. You know she's finished, for now, but echoes never truly vanish. The desert cools as the night deepens, the stars spilling across the sky like scattered jewels. The dunes breathe in a slow rhythm, as if the earth itself has fallen asleep. The air is softer now, carrying only the faintest whisper of the ordeal behind you, and each breath feels a little lighter. Your body eases into the sand's gentle cradle, and the last traces of tension seep away. Absorbed by the stillness of the night, the shattered fortress is gone, leaving only calm, open silence. No chains, no bells, no armies in the dark, just you, the sky, and the quiet sweep of eternity. The caravan settles nearby, their murmurs fading one by one until the only sound is the steady hush of the wind. The stars twinkle kindly, patient guardians who've seen countless stories rise and fall. They remind you that even the fiercest storms fade, and even the loudest voices eventually fall quiet. As your eyes grow heavier, the desert itself seems to rock you, dunes rising and falling like the breath of some vast benevolent sleeper. You let your thoughts loosen, drifting with the rhythm, until they dissolve into the gentle dark. You're safe here, safe enough to rest, safe enough to release the story and let sleep take you. So close your eyes now, and let the desert carry you off into dreams softer than starlight,